Item 10D, adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to do three things. First, execute a contract with West Bay Builders Incorporated for construction of the tank number 3 Glenview replacement project in the amount of $4,588,350 with a construction contingency of $459,000. To execute an amendment to the contract with West Yost Associates for design support services during construction in the amount not to exceed $113,960, and to execute a contract for construction inspection services with Valley Cooper and Associates, Inc. in the amount not to exceed $178,809. Will?
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Will Anderson. I'm a staff engineer in the Public Services Department, and I'm here to present the award of the various construction contracts that the Mayor outlined. This Glenview project is one of two tank projects currently under development. The second one being the tank number 1 project on Cunningham, which is still in the preliminary design phase. But this tank 3 project is ready for construction, and this presentation will focus on the replacement of the water storage tank on Glenview. The Glenview tank is one of 7 tanks in the city's water distribution system. It is the second largest overall in the system with a capacity of 2.0 million gallons, which equates to a volume of about 110 feet in diameter and about 35 feet in height. It does provide water service to an area generally bounded by Skyline Boulevard and 280, and between San Bruno Avenue and Sneath Lane. Generally, the water system operates by filling storage tanks, and then for the purpose of distributing the stored water to users. Tanks also provide for storage for emergency purposes, such as fire suppression. Due to its poor structural condition, the existing tank can only utilize 50% of its capacity, and at over 60 years of age is at the end of its useful life. Its replacement is listed as a priority project in the Water Master Plan, and a new tank will provide many decades of reliable future service. The basic scope of construction consists of replacing the existing tank, same volume, same location, same color, but designed per current building codes to create a seismically secure structure. We have typical examples of what a new tank would look like. Knowing the site proximity to the San Andreas Fault, additional seismic investigations called a fault trace study were performed to determine if any spur faults were within the tank site. On-site borings and trenches up to 15 feet deep, 150 feet long, were dug at the site, and active traces were identified as outlined on this map. So generally, to walk you through the exhibit, in the lower left-hand corner, the thick red line, that is the San Andreas Fault, generally running along Skyline Boulevard. The smaller dashed lines, specifically the one to the far right, was taken from established known faults, and the two thinner red lines in proximity to the existing tank were discovered as a result of the fault trace study. So the study also provided recommendations on how to recommended remediation measures were developed and incorporated into the plans, and included replacing 10 feet of existing soils beneath the tank with engineered fill and mesh reinforcement. We are also going to create a diversion berm on the surface, so to channel any unanticipated discharges from the tank away from nearby residences. We will also be installing an automatic shutoff valve to prevent water from leaving the tank if the connecting pipes are ever broken. And the tank foundations were actually increased from the initial 6-inch thicknesses to 30 inches to bridge any subsurface voids caused by an earthquake. Another beneficial design feature of the new tank is that fire trucks will be able to access the water directly from the tank, even if the distribution piping in the system is disabled. The costs for these improvements were not previously accounted for and have increased the project construction cost from the previous estimate. The fault trace study also provided an alternative to resituate the tank away from the fault, but this alternative was deemed infeasible due to the lack of city-owned properties and the complications of reconnecting into the system should an alternative site be found. To ensure seismic issues are completely addressed during construction, a bid alternate was included to get a competitive cost for any potential field revisions to the tank foundation due to unknown soils conditions beneath the tank. Because the investigations during the fault trace study were performed adjacent to the tank. But feedback from the tank designers indicate that the bid alternate is not anticipated to be used, but is available to limit any cost increases during construction. During construction, the water within the system would be bypassed around the tank, so we are not anticipating any service disruptions to the public. Bids were opened on August 26th, and 6 bids were received. Although above the estimate, all bids were within a 10% spread, which indicates that there was little uncertainty within the plans and specifications. Staff is recommending that the construction contract be awarded to the low bidder, West Bay Builders. And due to the project complexity, there are structural issues, geotechnical issues, electrical and mechanical installations. Staff is proposing to also award consultant contracts for construction support from our designer, West Yost, as well as construction management from Valley Cooper and Associates. Please note that Valley Cooper was chosen from a list of pre-qualified consulting firms for construction management. For schedule, the project is estimated to begin in early November with an estimated completion date by December of 2015. And prior to the start of construction, our standard operating procedures are to notify the nearby residents of the upcoming construction. So this concludes my presentation. I'm ready to address any questions or concerns.
Any questions for staff? Irene?
I have a couple, thank you. When the water's distributed from this tank, is it through gravity or is it through a pump?
It's through gravity.
Okay.
The water within the tank builds up to a height, and because of that height, it kind of
Pushes it out.
releases into the transmission pipe system.
Okay, I'm fascinated by the concept that the fire engines could hook up directly to this and get the water. Is there a training piece that needs to be done to the firemen so they know how to do this in case of emergency, or
No,
is it self-evident, or?
Yes, this detail was actually developed by our water operations department, and we use components identical to those on a fire hydrant, just in a slightly different configuration, but exactly like hooking up to a fire hydrant.
Great, so you're gonna show them where it is, right? So okay. I think that was it for now. Go ahead.
Michael?
Through the chair, yeah, just one quick question. So the construction's going to take roughly a year to complete, and since it's going on the same site, I'm assuming you're going to tear down the old one and then start building the new one. And so what happens with the current demand met by that tank for that year? Where is the water for that area coming from? Is it going to be diverted from another tank, or is it going to be a direct feed from the system? No water.
Well, in general terms, we have the capabilities to kind of manipulate water throughout the system, and because the tank will be out of service, we are going to develop a bypass plan, which we will coordinate with the contractor to keep the water flowing wherever it needs to be.
So where is that water going to come from? Is it going to come directly from a well, or is it going to be diverted from another tank?
It will be diverted from another tank. We won't have as much storage as we will have once the tank is completed, but during this time, water would be provided from the other tanks. We have tanks that are above this location, and water can be provided to the system through a bypass.
And is there any consideration to, like, if there were an emergency and we needed access to water that normally would have been in this tank, but now we don't have it, what sort of contingency plan do we have to address that situation?
The right reaction.
Currently, we're working with our operations people to develop that plan. There are several different options that we are exploring, but we will want to make sure that the water is available during an emergency in lieu of this tank.
Okay, thank you.
Through the chair.
Anything else, Rico?
Mine just really quick on Councilmember Salazar. You are developing a plan, and that's great. So when the plan is developed, can we be enlightened?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anything
Through the
else?
chair.
Ken?
I know seismic design, but I don't know 2 million gallons of water. And I don't want to be alarmed, but it just seems that there was an anticipation for a tank design to some extent, and then through all these new studies, now we've got some real, complex design, to withstand seismic activity. I know buildings, and I know we can do certain things, to offset seismic movement, up to a certain point. But again, I mean, this is, wants to be a full water tank of 2 million gallons, and what assurances? I know there's calculations and all this stuff, but, what happens when, possibly that, we had this tank and and it comes up the San Andreas Fault, and we anticipate something of 5 point, something that like hit Napa, last month. Is it designed to withstand that? Water moving, movement and all this stuff? Are we, I don't know how the right way to say it, are we just trying to design for the place that we have a tank, or is it, are we avoiding the fact that we should probably put it somewhere else, safer? I know it's a mouthful, but it's beyond my comprehension of how big this, how much weight and force this thing has.
Yeah, understood. And fortunately, we have an experienced tank vendor working with us who has been part of the plan development process. We designed to the current codes available, and with the information learned with the subsurface investigations, these are the recommended design approaches, and as part of the construction, the vendor will be supplying detailed drawings and structural calculations, which we will have reviewed by a neutral third party to ensure compliance to the code.
Just to elaborate on that a bit, the Napa Valley, the earthquake that occurred recently, it was about 6.1 magnitude, and they had 1 million-gallon water tank that was totally taken out of commission, not just for the foundation, but the tank itself was not functional after the earthquake. This tank has been designed as an essential facility. The way that it's been designed, by taking out the 10 feet of ground underneath it, bringing in fill, Class 2 fill, compacting it, and put a 30-inch mat foundation on it, is supposed to isolate it from any kind of a movement. So it has been designed as an essential facility. In an earthquake, most possibly, this tank will survive a big earthquake. However, all the connections, all the distribution lines, they may suffer more damage than this tank would. That's why for this tank, we are relying on it that during a large seismic event, even if the distribution lines are out of order, that a water truck would be able to connect to it and use this tank for many purposes, fire and providing water surface in an emergency.
And one more note about the design is the connection between the vertical wall and the roof. There's actually some freeboard, free space built in, because during the seismic event, you know, the water will create what they call a sloshing wave, and the vendors have provided space as well as connectivity to prevent or to contain the sloshing wave within the tank.
Interestingly enough, I mean, if the tank goes, then our storage goes, but it's almost, I mean, the system, the infrastructure, you know, wants to be in place so that we can distribute the water. I'll take your word for it. I mean, I cringe a little when you say that it's built to code, because a code is just a document and everything, and so everyone wants it to be built, you know, to really withstand what we've experienced in the past, and hopefully, I'm sure they've done that.
We actually designed this to exceed the code, and this is probably the latest design available. This is probably state-of-the-art compared to any other tank that we have seen so far.
And will you be anticipating the same type of issues with the other tank?
The Cunningham Tank 1?
Cunningham, yeah.
Yeah, we are currently expecting a draft version of a fault trace study, which we also performed at Cunningham, so we'll wait to see what the report states.
Thank you very much.
Through the chair, one more question. It just came to me while I was listening to that discussion. So can you indicate on the map that's on the slide right now where a water truck would access the tank? Would it be through that gray strip that we see there on the left side of the slide?
Yeah, currently there's a driveway off of Glenview Drive, and there will be an access road around the entire perimeter of the tank. We anticipate having the fire department connection generally near the entrance, kind of where the cursor is at this point. So it's intended to be easily accessible.
And the primary line running out of this tank, can you indicate where that would come out of the tank?
Well, at this point in time, it actually comes from the rear of the tank and goes down the hill, but we are providing a stub out for a possible future connection at Glenview Drive.
Okay. Yeah, because we got so many red lines on that, I'm wondering, so if we lose a line, we can still get a truck up there, but then there's a fault running right across that road, so if we lose a road, then I'm wondering, right, well, and I'm thinking, did we really think out the location? And we got so many red lines on this particular map, and yeah, we're short on space, but I mean, that looks like a dangerous area in terms of faults. And it's costing a lot of money to harden this structure, and if we're still vulnerable because of everything else that's around it not being as hardened as the structure itself, I'm wondering if we're just, we're building this ivory tower and we're going to have nowhere to get to it in an emergency.
Because another alternative was to investigate situating the tank farther to the east, but the ground does slope down towards the back, and it would necessitate an additional, slope stability analysis. So, based on recommendations, group discussions, we thought it would be best to replace in its current location outside of existing faults, because it would be even worse if we situated the tank directly on top of a fault.
Right, that makes sense. And I guess because it's a gravity feed system and we're feeding that particular neighborhood, it's got to be somewhere near there, and it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of choices.
And here again, the tank vendor has been part of the design development, so their structural design, due to the mat foundation increase accounts for kind of a torsional movement of the tank based on, you know, the kind of being situated between two faults. So it's been analyzed to the best of everybody's ability.
Okay. All right, I guess if we have no alternative locations, it's the best we can do. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or action by the council?
Mark, can we introduce all of them at once? Yes, you may. Okay, I introduce all of them at once.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar.
Aye.
Councilmember Ibera.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Medina.
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye.